Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan and today we're talking all things team value and price changes. So we're going to be talking all about how you can increase your squad value, how you can take advantage of price changes, all the kind of tactics and stuff where you can sort of take all of these things to your advantage and get yourself a really expensive, really money-balling team. So that's what we're going to be going for today. So let's start off by saying that squad value is important, but it's not everything. Points are definitely 100% more important than squad value. So if you're sacrificing points in order to build squad value, you're going to regret it later. Don't be taking -4 hits just for the sake of increasing your team value. It's just not worth it at all. It's a stupid decision. Don't do it. However, there is a sort of a middle ground and some tricks you can use to build team value without ripping your team apart. Just sort of do it organically. And generally speaking, if you are doing well and picking the right players at the right time, your squad value will naturally gain value. But that's not to say that there aren't a couple of tricks that we can do to just increase it that little bit more, particularly if you have a good understanding of how price changes work and you're sort of aware of them. It's really easy to increase your squad value very nicely indeed. These are tricks that I'm happy to share that I use in my team sort of every year. I sort of aim to get a minimum of 105 million squad value at the end of a season, but you know, it can go up a lot more than that. You can go sort of all the way up to 107 million. I think at the end of last season, I ended up the season with something like 106.5 million squad value, which, you know, I know, for example, 100 million to 105 million doesn't sound like a lot, but that's literally the difference between having a Stuart Armstrong in your team to a Bruno Fernandes in your team. So when you think about it as an increase of quality of that amount, then that's not too bad, is it? So before we get going, if you do enjoy this video, please do give it a big like. If you find this helpful, please do consider subscribing. Plenty more FPL videos on my channel every single day, loads of stuff going on. So yeah, I hope you do enjoy this video. So let's get going. So we'll start with price changes, the sort of beginning of everything. So speaking very broadly, a player's price will increase when a lot of people transfer them in, but not many people transfer them out. And a player price will decrease when a lot of people transfer them out, but not a lot of people transfer them in. We don't know the exact threshold. The threshold will even change throughout the season, so it's not an exact science. But what we do know is that it's going to be relative to a player's total ownership. So let's use an example. If Mohamed Salah is in 1 million teams and a net of 10,000 new managers bring Salah into their teams, the price probably isn't going to change. But if someone a little bit more obscure like Leandro Trossard is in 20,000 teams and a new net of 10,000 managers bring him in, he's surely due a price rise just because as a percentage, his total ownership has just increased by 50%, whereas in this Salah example, his total ownership has only increased by 1%. So, put simply, the more people that already own a particular player, the harder it is for them to increase in price, and the less people that own a player, the easier it is for them to increase in price. So, as for price decreases, I think from what I've seen, it seems to be far less relative. So it's kind of almost as if Salah is sold by 10,000 managers, he is just likely to drop in price as if Trossard is sold by 10,000 managers. So price decreases naturally are going to happen far more frequently than price increases, so do be aware of that. And one more fact, transfers made on wildcards and free hits, they don't count towards the total amount of people making the transfer, so they don't count towards the price changes. But I guess you don't really need to worry about that, but it's just something to be aware of. So moving on, a player can only increase or decrease in value for a maximum of 0.1 million a day. And a player can only increase or decrease in value for a maximum of 0.3 million a week. So if our friend Leandro Trossard has already increased by 0.3 million in a week, even if 5 million new managers bring in Trossard, but he's already increased by 0.3, he can't change anymore. His price cannot change. It's locked. It's locked at that 0.3 more than it started with. That goes both ways for price increases and decreases. Also, daily price changes occur at 2 a.m. GMT, roughly. Again, this is not an exact science, so if you're trying to beat price changes, try and do your transfers by midnight GMT. But beating price changes, if you've not heard that expression before, you're in the right place. So let's talk about beating price changes. So I think this is the most important part of the video and the best way to organically grow your squad value. So do pay attention, I guess. So generally speaking, a player will decrease in value if they're injured, suspended, or playing really badly. And a player will increase in value if they've, just scored a hat-trick or just returned from being unable to play. Maybe they returned from injury or a break or some kind. So typically, it's also going to be the low ownership players in great form that will increase the most in value. Think Danny Ings from last season. He was pretty lowly owned. Not many people owned him. He had some really good form, I think it was around November, December, and he ended up being the biggest price increase of the whole season, just because he started off low ownership, low price, and just, everyone brought him into their teams, and suddenly huge increases. So that's the kind of player who will increase a lot. But why would we bother working this all out ourselves? Why would we have the headache of making these predictions when there is a tool that does it for you? So this is FPLstatistics.co.uk. One of my absolute favourite FPL tools, particularly in the early stages of the season where I'm trying to increase my squad value to get an advantage over my rivals. This website predicts with pretty much 99% accuracy when a player is about to increase in price and when a player is about to decrease in price. It's completely blank at the moment, but when the season starts, what we see here is the target column, and this is going to start changing for each player. And the rule is that if a player's target is over the number 100, at 2 a.m. when the price changes occur, that player will increase in price by 0.1. But if a player's target is at minus 100 at 2 a.m, the player's price will decrease by 0.1 at that moment. So if you want a player, but this website is telling you they're about to increase in price, make sure you make that transfer before they increase in price. So you've essentially gained 0.1 million in squad value. Easy peasy. This tactic, however, does carry some slight risk as it sometimes forces you to make transfers very early in the week. This means if you make a transfer on a Monday, for example, but the player doesn't play until Saturday, that's 4 days in between where the player could get an injury in training. Maybe they have a cup game midweek and they don't look fit. Maybe some news comes out later on in the week that they can't play, and then you've wasted your transfer. Maybe later on in the week, another player in your team gets injured, but as I say, you've already used your transfer, so you now got to take a -4 to bring in another player, and you sort of regret making that early transfer. So that is the risk, which it does indeed carry, but often the potential gain outweighs the risk, especially if there's few or no midweek cup games. There are also scenarios where you have to keep an eye on price changes and make early transfers, and I can use myself as an example here for my transfer plans. So, as you can see, I've got Son in my current Game Week 1 team. Son is worth 9 million. I also have 1.5 in the bank. This is because I want to make the transfer ready for Game Week 2 from Son to Bruno Fernandes, who's worth 1.5 million more than Son for a total of 10.5 million. The problem is, if either Son decreases in price by 0.1 million or Bruno increases in price by 0.1 million, I can no longer afford to make this transfer. Given that Bruno doesn't play in Game Week 1 and returns in Game Week 2, this means a lot of people are going to be making that transfer and bringing in Bruno for Game Week 2. So I'm going to have to check the FPL statistics from Saturday pretty much every day and check if it looks like Bruno is going to increase in price. The same with Son. Does it look like he's going to decrease in price? Because as soon as the prices change, I can no longer make the transfer. So I have to beat it. I have to beat that particular price change on 2 players. So that's why, as soon as, the first games start on Saturday, that is the start where people can start making transfers for their Game Week 2 teams. That's where the prices will start to change. And that is going to be very dangerous if I don't keep an eye on it. And, a lot of people are going to want to make this exact transfer. A lot of people are going to be trying to do Son to Bruno. And if they're not quick enough, if they don't keep an eye on these price changes, they're suddenly going to be priced out. They won't be able to make this move anymore. So this is another really good way of not only taking advantage and building your squad value, but also getting the heads up above all of your rivals who are much slower on the trigger, who don't make these transfers in time. You've made the transfer in time. You've gained an instant advantage, and you can just roll with that advantage and go through. So that's what I'm planning to do, and it's a really good tactic for increasing your value and getting ahead a little bit. So let's talk about buying and selling players, because it is not quite as simple as it seems. Right, when buying a player, you pay their exact current price on the day you buy them. That's easy peasy, isn't it? But when you sell a player, it's a little bit more complex. So if you sell a player who's decreased in price, you will sell that player for that decreased price. So for example, a few months ago, you brought in Harry Kane. He cost you 10.5 million. You've stuck with him, he's done okay, but his form hasn't been great, and he's dropped price a little bit down to 10.3 million. It's time to go, Harry Kane. I'm selling Harry Kane now. I'm receiving 10.3 million back when I sold him. That makes sense. He's gone down to 10.3, he's sold for 10.3. However, say you bought Kane in for 10.5 again, he's absolutely smashed it. Suddenly everyone is on the Kane train. He's up to 10.7 million. Awesome. But you're looking at fixtures, you've got other players you want to bring in, you want to free up some funds, so you want to sell Kane. So you go to sell Kane, but you realise, even though Kane is worth 10.7 million, you're only going to get 10.6 million in return. This is because unlike selling players who decrease in value, there's a formula for selling players who increase in value that goes like this. Current player price minus the price that you bought for, and that gives you the profit. Profit is then divided by 2 and added to the price you initially bought the player for, and that gives you the selling price. If the profit is an uneven number, it's rounded down. So if a profit is divided by 2, rounded down to the nearest whole number, plus the price you bought it for, and that equals your selling price. So let's use Kane as an example again. If his current price is all the way up to 10.8 million, but you brought him for 10.5 million, that's a nice 0.3 profit. That profit is now halved and rounded down to the nearest whole number, which makes it down to 0.1 million. It means you're getting only 10.6 million back for Kane, even though he's increased all the way up to 10.8. So what you can either do is either try and wait to see if the player increases one more time, just so you get the 0.2. Maybe you should check FPL statistics. If Kane is due to go up one more, then you should wait. You should wait until Kane increases by that 0.1 so you can get that profit back. Or of course you can just cut your losses if it doesn't look like Kane is going to go up in price anymore. Maybe he's even going to go down in price. So not so much. You don't have to worry about the transfer so much if he's going down, because your profit, your money back, isn't going to change anyway. But no, this is sort of a good thing to notice the timings of buying and selling players based on how much you're going to get back. But the most important time to consider this algorithm for buying and selling players is that when you're selling a player that you think you might bring back later. So I'm buying Bruno Fernandes for 10.5 million. If he increases all the way up to 11.5 and I sell him, I'm getting 11 million back for him. Okay, a couple of weeks pass, I want Bruno back. He's still at 11.5 million, but I only have the 11 million that I sold him for. Suddenly, I can't afford to bring Bruno back. So, the takeaway from this section, I guess, of the video is really, if you have successfully managed to invest in a player who's increased in value, particularly if this player has increased a lot in value, you should only sell the player if you don't think there's any chance of you bringing them back. If you're never bringing them back, then this is great. You can reinvest all of the profit you've made. But if you think you might want that player back at some point, you might accidentally price yourself out of the move to get them back. So do be aware of that. Do worry about that, I guess. So let's do a summary just quickly, because I know this video is quite a lot of information to take in, but here are the key points to remember. So prices fall easier than they rise. Be aware of player price changes using fplstatistics.co.uk. Prices change at around 2 a.m. GMT, but try and do your transfers before midnight GMT. Count your money carefully and make the appropriate transfers before price changes, being aware of midweek games as well. If a player has risen a lot in price since you brought them, don't sell them on if you intend to bring them back. If you don't intend them bringing a player back, sell them and reinvest your money. If you do all these things, you will increase your squad value very naturally at sort of minimum risk to your total score. And these are sort of the rules I'm going to be following all season, but mostly at the beginning of the season, where I want to increase my value a decent amount without sacrificing too much. So it's really about targeting the same players you would target anyway, but just making the transfers at the right moments, making early transfers when necessary, that kind of thing. Picking up that small risk of maybe a player gets injured. If you've got a good bench, then you don't need to worry about that too much. But this is what I'm going to do to try and increase my value quite nice and early, and then going on from there, I'm already at an advantage over all my rivals. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to go through this every single week in my team selection videos, what transfers I'm making, why I'm making them, at what point I'm making these transfers. So if you're not subscribed already, please do consider subscribing. Join me on my sort of watch along through the season, see what transfers and moves I'm making. Hopefully I can teach you a few things. Hopefully I can help you improve your rank, and hopefully all of us together can all win our individual mini leagues. I know we can do it. So let's do it together. Come on, let's go, guys. Like this video if you found this useful in any way whatsoever, I guess. Really appreciate it if you can do that for me. And aside from that, loads of stuff in the description if you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, join my mini league as well. Support me on Patreon if you want to do that. Plenty of little rewards there as well. All of that's in the description, so go check that out. But aside from that, really do hope to see you guys on the next one, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye bye.